Hi, I have a program that you already know how to do. It populates 20 numbers in the array. It displays the contents of the array. Then it allows the user to enter an item and it searches for the index position of the number in the array. And the last one is it sorts the numbers in the array. Now we've done that in class. I want to quickly remind you of the code. The first one is populate. We run a loop from 1 to 20. And if we look on the top, the array is declared of type integer. We have 20 elements and the name of the array is marks. So the first button, populate 1 to 20. Marks of I is assigned random range 0 to 101, which will give us marks in the range 0 to 100. If we go back to the GUI, button display, and that's a simple button that outputs the contents of the array running from 1 to 20. Red display.lines.add. It outputs the index position and the marks in the array. Now your search, we've done this in class. You'll notice that it allows the user to enter an item that we're looking for. I'm using a Boolean variable called found. We set found to false. We run a loop from 1 to 20. And then we check if marks of I is equal to search num. So it loops through the entire array. And when it finds a number that has been inputted by the user matching the criteria, then your found changes to true, and then it outputs the number in the position that it is in. And then we have a found if false. If false is still false. If found is still false, that means there's no such number. Now what I want to do is I want to change this to a more advanced search. The problem with our search is that the loop runs. Even if we find a number in position 2, the loop will carry on running. So we're going to modify the search such that when we find the number in the loop, or the array I should say, then the loop must terminate. So in order for us to do that, we have to take away our for loop and we're going to run a while loop. So the command is while, we're going to say while found is equal to false. So the loop will carry on running until found changes to true. As soon as found changes to true, the loop will stop running. So let's assume in the second run it finds the number it's looking for, then the loop stops. But the problem is, what if we don't find it? So then we need the loop to run maximum time of 20. Now we don't have a for loop, so we have to manually set up a counter. We're going to call it I, and we set I to be 0. Actually, let's set it to 1. And you'll notice if marks of I, so it's set to 1, it checks. But before we leave the loop, the value of I needs to increase by 1. So we're going to use the increase command, or the increase procedure I should say, inc I, and that will increase it by 1. So it's I is assigned to 1, and after it checks the first one, then I becomes 2, and it goes to marks of 2, so it will carry on going. Now the problem is we only have 20 elements, so we got to make sure if we don't find an element, the maximum number of times that this loop can run is 20. So we'll put a command and the loop will run as long as I is less than 21. So if I goes above 20, if it gets to 21, the loop will terminate. And based on the value of found, remember found is set to be false. If found changes to true, we found the element. But if found doesn't change to true, if we come outside the while loop, I'm going to use Control D to align the code. If we come outside this loop and found is still false, that means there's no such number. So we have a more efficient search, as you can see it. And the only thing we had to change was the for loop became the while, and we had to set up a counter. I is assigned 1, and manually increase that counter. Let's go now to the next button, sort. Now we have done the sort in class, and this is your standard sort. The first loop runs from 1 to 19. The second loop runs from I plus 1 to the last element, which is 20. Do, if marks of I is greater than marks of j, then we do a swap. And that is our normal sort. And then we said, here I'm writing to clear the display area and to call for the button called display. Now I want to change the sort, a more sophisticated sort. I'm going to allow the user to enter a number. Actually, let's set the number first, because most of you know how to get the user to enter a number. To save time, I'm going to assume the number is 50. And I want the array sorted in terms of the number that is closest to 50. So we're going to look at the difference between the number in the array and 50, and the one closest we're going to sort according to that criteria. Now, in order for us to do that, we only have to change one line of code. And the line is the if statement. So I'm going to go and put a bracket around this. So I'm going to check if the number minus the number in the array, now we're finding the difference, is greater than the number minus the next element in the array. Now the problem is that we could have negative differences. So in order for us to cater for the negative and positive differences, we use a command called ABS. Now ABS will basically change the number to positive. If the answer here was -5, then ABS will make it a +5. If the number here was +5, then ABS will keep it as +5. Now if we run that, this would work. So I want to now quickly run this program to show you it's working. Hopefully, I should say. Button populates. Then we have our display. You notice these are all our numbers in our array. Let's quickly do a search. Let's assume we were looking for a number called 31. And the number is in position 9. Well, we cannot actually physically see the loop terminating. So let's do another search. Let's look for a number called, well, let's look for 100, because we don't have a 100 in here. And it tells you no such number. We're going to sort. And if you look at the sort, you'll see you got 50, 51, 57, then you got a 63, then you got a 33. So when we're looking at that, remember we have the array sorted according to which number is closest to 50. And you can see we have 50, because the difference between 50 and 50 is 0. Then we have 51, the difference is 1. 57 compared to 50 is 7. Then we got 63, which is a difference of 13. Then we got 33, because there's a difference now of 17. And you see the array has been sorted according to the closest number to 50. And I want to return to my code, remind you of the sort. All we had to do was change the if line. That will find the absolute value of the difference between the number 50 and the number in the array. And if we go to search, all we had to do was bring in a while loop and say while found is equal to false and I is less than 21. We had to manually set up a counter. I is assigned 1, and before we end the loop, we had to increase I. Thank you. I hope and trust that you understood this code.